Can you hear me, Alex?
Yes,
Okay,
you
excellent.
can go ahead.
Okay, well, good morning, everybody. This is Praveen, and I'm the founder of a company called XR. XR as a company, we are primarily into the virtual and augmented reality space, and now working towards building the industrial metaverse. This talk, I'm not going to try and define what the metaverse should be or what the industrial metaverse should be. I think the key purpose of my talk here is to talk about the evolutions that have happened over the last few years, and share my experiences of working with various industrial sector users and companies where we have brought about innovations for their different processes. And what I do believe that many of those concepts would help us build in the future, whatever the industrial metaverse is going to be, right? But I think a lot of the concepts that we are working on are extremely close to the approach of building a metaverse. Of course, we are about 2.5 years old, based in the Silicon Valley. We are partners with Microsoft, Oculus, Plug and Play Japan, and a couple of other organizations. And we primarily work in the industrial space as a company. So before I dive into the metaverse specific points here, my approach is again from an engineering perspective. What are the key challenges that the industrial sector faces, and how can we help them, right? And this is what I've been doing all my career as part of XR and my previous business. What are the industrial challenges that we are looking at? So when we look at a factory or industrial enterprise, there is a typical life cycle that the industry follows, where you start with engineering. You want to set up a factory, you bring in design teams, engineering teams who are going to design the factory, and subsequently you're going to hand over the design to a construction team or the project team, which is going to go and do the construction of the factory. Subsequently, the factory is handed over to operations teams, where the workers and supervisors will come in to execute and operate the factory. And finally, if required, there are maintenance teams who are involved, for upkeep of the plant. Now, when we look at the engineering teams, typically they have some crazy challenges around customer collaboration, right? Most of the engineering teams, they are doing the complete design and modeling in 3D using CAD and BIM software. Slightly different from what Emmanuel referred to, but these are typically industrial tools which are very popular in the sector. But there is no very good way for designers to collaborate with customers or even with construction team members on validating their designs, right? When we look at the construction, everything downstream after engineering is typically either non-digital or 2D at the maximum. Construction members typically will have a paper drawing, which already throws away a lot of the information that was created by the engineering team. And this leads to a lot of challenges on the site, like clashes, and finally into rework that delays a lot of construction projects. Of course, finally, when you look at operations, and this is something that's been talked about a lot in the media, is the need for training to have skilled factory workers, and technical support for these workers, from domain experts. When I talk about maintenance, this is where there is a factory which is already in operation but had a breakdown. There is a huge cost of downtime of factories, and typically the documentation available to maintenance engineers can be either complex or non-existent in many cases. So when we look at these challenges, and how to address them to give a uniform environment, what we feel is that there has been a lack of a common information environment throughout the industrial enterprise. And this is the problem that we started addressing a few years back. And this was the motivation behind building XR as a technology. So towards the rest of my presentation, I'm going to talk about some of the blocks that we have built which we believe can be a very core fundamental part of the industrial metaverse, right? So when we look at these challenges, what exactly does it mean from a technology standpoint, right? So what really required to solve some of these problems that we are looking at? So of course we have physical assets, just like Emmanuel and Alex referred to, and so the first effort is almost always to digitize them, right? And have potentially be able to store them on a cloud platform or some other storage platform. But when we talk about a factory environment, which is a living, breathing environment, right? There is need for synchronization between what's happening in the field, and this is where typically industrial IoT comes to help. And you make a digital replica, which Emmanuel, of course, talked about as a digital twin of the physical environment. But when we look at digital twin, of course, there's a lot of other potential elements. There could be AI that makes it an even more intelligent model, and potentially other specific aspects. So now that you have a digital representation of your enterprise, of your industry, right? This is when you can start solving very, very interesting problems that we saw previously. So for example, a designer could simply hop on, put on a VR headset, right? Pull the digital version of the model that he has designed in virtual reality. But not just that, he could also pull in the construction supervisor to help him understand exactly what the model is going to be like and what the final factory is supposed to be like, right? And address his challenges. Also, a project manager could jump into the call, again, just using VR headsets, be able to literally walk inside the factory even before it's built, right? So that's a very, very interesting use case of what we would call the industrial metaverse. And this is something that we set out to solve, and it's already part of our platform. Now, once you have this platform and you have this beautiful digital environment, the same exact content and environment can then be brought over to the field teams, right? And so we have partners who are building what are called connected worker applications, where the construction supervisor can simply take an iPad or a HoloLens, right, and have the complete 3D model available on the construction site. Imagine creating a plant, a complex plant like that with a piece of 2D drawing, right, which is what people have been doing over the ages, right? But then the transformation that happens when they are able to do this, get access to the complete information on their fingertips on a device like an iPad, is a complete game changer. And then the same exact content is then also available for maintenance engineers, who can then use a HoloLens or again an iPad or a device like that to get their complete work instructions overlaid on top of the factory floor, right? So that they can do the maintenance activity in a much faster manner without any errors. So the point I'm trying to make here is that when we look at the industrial metaverse or the industrial environment that we're talking about building here, the same environment can be used for different kinds of use cases. And this is where the whole thought around building an industrial metaverse around that starts, right? So at XR, we believe that what we need to do is we start building everything in a piece by piece manner. So for the last few years, we have already built quite a few models, quite a few modules in this technology. This is actually a product that's already in the market. It's already been in the market for the last 2 years, deployed at various industrial sites and industrial users. And the product and the platform has been evolving over the last couple of years based on additional user feedback, as well as developer feedback, because we allow developers to use our platform to build custom applications. And I'm going to talk about that in the subsequent part of my talk. On the face of it, of course, it seems like a very, very amazing concept. But then what are the technology barriers that prevent something like this from happening? So one of the things clearly is that the technology stack is extremely siloed. Whether you look at the 3D content that's available from CAD or BIM models, or you look at the IIoT infrastructures, a lot of the technology stacks are very siloed, and there aren't very many standard tools and workflows. Secondly, digitization is extremely costly. A lot of 3D scanning for factory environments, which could be spanning hundreds and thousands of or even millions of square feet, right? Digitization can be really costly and time consuming. But when you look at engineering models, right, like BIM models or CAD models for the factories that were used during engineering, almost all of the data formats are logged in proprietary formats. Converting them to sort of open standards is something that has not been a solved problem over the past. Of course, finally, data security is an extremely critical area when you talk about industrial applications. Some of the models and some of the data can be extremely large. So the technology and the platform has to be able to address things of that sort. So these are the key technology barriers that we looked at when building our platform. And the first thing that we thought was that, how do we bring in a virtual model? How do we build these virtual environments from existing content? So instead of having to go to the field, scan 3D models and convert them into sort of these interactive models, how about enabling existing content? And we realized that there is a substantial number of industrial enterprises who already had data in formats which are in CAD formats or in BIM models, right? So one of the core pieces of intellectual property that we built was around translating these models automatically without any data loss into a cloud-enabled standard format that can then be brought into a augmented reality or virtual reality environment. So this is what we call XR Stream, which is a completely automatic and a completely lossless data translator that connects to CAD applications, BIM applications, and brings that content into a VR AR environment. So that brings me to the other building blocks that we have as part of the XR stack. Of course, the whole environment of being able to bring in lossless 3D models directly into this cloud environment, into this, so to speak, industrial metaverse environment. In addition to that, what we've also done is we have provided cloud-enabled APIs for developers, which allows them to build their own custom applications or to add capabilities like AI. So we have people who are using Azure AI as well as Azure IoT to connect to XR platform and build other custom applications on top of the base platform. Then what we have done is we have created optimized native XR clients, which are able to load huge 3D models and huge 3D assemblies and be able to visualize them in that particular environment. So when you talk about Oculus Quest, we have a native Oculus Quest app available on the store, or a native iOS app, or a native HoloLens app. Of course, we have then enabled our partners and developers to build use case specific applications, whether it is for design reviews or for connected worker kind of applications. Many of these are built by partners. And I'll be very happy to talk to other folks here who would be interested in evaluating our platform. Lastly, the complete cloud platform is a secure cloud platform that's hosted by AWS, Azure, and for some of our industrial customers, we also do an on-prem deployment, which is capable of streaming data in a very, very smart manner to clients. And then there's a Zoom-like interface that allows any user to simply jump on a call like this from their VR headset or from their AR device. So that sort of allows multiple users to come together inside this industrial metaverse environment for various use cases, whether it's training, whether it's production, whether it's operations. So this is a very, very high level. Yeah, thanks, Alex. I'm just finishing. So this is sort of just high level thoughts around what I think it would take to build an industrial metaverse. And I'll be happy to chat with people if there are any questions. Glad to answer them now or maybe offline, Alex.